Larry, so you made it very clear before we started the show that you want to pop my balloon because I'm pretty hopeful about the developments today. So I'd love to get your thoughts because, in my view, Trump is negotiating with Iran, and Iran doesn't want to admit it, so not to keep the pressure on Trump economically. Because when Trump said that he's negotiating with Iran, the oil prices went down, markets improved, crypto went up, so everything just did better. So what I'm assuming is that Iran is either there's a power struggle there, and I posted about this, and the IRGC doesn't want a peace deal, the executive branch or someone there is negotiating, or they're all aligned, but they don't want to tell the world that there's peace negotiations to make sure that the pressure remains on Trump from an economic perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump is once again playing the role of Lucy in the Charlie Brown cartoon series. Lucy would get out there with the football and say, "Hey, Charlie, come kick the football." Charlie'd come running up to kick it. She'd pull it away. He'd fly in the air, fall flat on his rear end. United States has done that twice to Iran. They did it last June. The negotiations were underway. The United States was saying, "Oh, yeah, we're serious about this." And then Israel, with U.S. backing, at the time Trump denied it, but then later admitted it, launched an unprovoked attack on Iran. Jump ahead now to February 28th or February 26th. Once again, Iran negotiating, and they feel like they're making progress. And J.D. Vance is even upbeat about it. And 2 days later, surprise attack. So Trump now has said, this is they're in discussions and we're going to see in 5 days. Well, what happens in 5 days? Let's see. Oh, yes. There's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU, that sailed from Okinawa on the 30th of, let's see, it was 2 weeks ago, a week ago. Anyway, they're scheduled to March 13th. They're scheduled to arrive in the waters off the coast of Iran in 5 to 6 days. Coincidence? At the same time, we're seeing that they've also dispatched the 11th MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit. It will arrive around April 7th. In addition, there has been a massive movement of C-17s flying into the region, into both Jordan, Cyprus, and Israel. Those C-17s are, they can carry troops, they can carry helicopters, they can carry tanks, they can carry a variety of things needed for war. So while Trump's talking, oh yeah, we had good discussions, and yet the Iranians said, no, we didn't. We didn't talk about a damn. We're not talking to them. Now, why would Trump say that? Well, I think you said it yourself in your opening. It drove the stock market price went up 1,000 points today, early on. It ended 600 up on the Dow, and it lowered the price of Brent. This was a move to manipulate the market, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of Donald Trump's kids was shorting the market and playing. They made some money off of this because they know it's nonsense. It is the United States is not going to settle with Iran. Iran is not going to settle with the United States. There's nothing the United States can offer Iran short of eliminating all sanctions, withdrawing all U.S. military personnel from the region, and paying reparations. At a minimum, those are Iran's demands. They're not going to back away from those for a minute. And so, Trump's just blowing smoke.
There's a report that came in, I'm trying to find it quickly now, that Iran's requests for a peace deal or for a ceasefire include reparations, security guarantees that this won't happen again, lifting of sanctions, but they did not include this time around, they did not include the removal of American bases from the region. Is it possible that this could be conceded in the negotiations?
No. They've suffered too many martyrs.
Yeah, but they don't. But okay, but they need to. You're saying they need to remove the U.S. bases to prevent another war. My argument is they don't need that anymore. What they've proven in this war, Larry, is that with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to continue to strike the Gulf and Israel, despite 25 days of bombing, heavy bombing by the U.S. and Israel on Iran, they've just established deterrence. They don't need a nuclear weapon. They don't need American bases out. Their capability to close the straits and strike Gulf energy infrastructure should be enough deterrence. Like, I think this is enough to ensure that the U.S. never attacks again.
Well, let's ask that reverse the question. Why does the United States need to have bases there?
Yeah, I don't have an answer.
Well, the only reason for those bases to exist is to attack Iran. There,
or to enforce interests. So if we do get an Iranian regime that is less that is more willing to work with the US, well, the troops, they will ensure this never changes. The presence of troops next to Venezuela allowed them to capture Maduro. So it's like it's less having war with Iran. It's more preserving the status quo, which is most countries are very friendly to the US, except Iran for now.
Well, the problem is the lies that the United States continues to tell about Iran, and claiming that Iran has been, like Donald Trump said, Iran's been attacking us for 46, 47 years. Excuse me. Let's go back through the history. It's not Iran that's been attacking the United States. It's the other way around. And why is that? Because, in fact, in the aftermath of the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, and the United States, not under the pressure from Iran, is installed as the leaders of the government, Shia movements that had a strong ties with Iran. The Iranians are going, see, we knew there was a God. The only one, the one party that was led by Muqtada al-Sadr, he was more pro-Iraqi, less inclined to deal with the Iranians. And he was the one constantly attacking U.S. troops, not the Dawa that were aligned. They were aligned with Iran, but they were also working with the United States. And then when ISIS emerged, it was those two Shia movements in the Iraqi government that fought with the United States against ISIS and Al Qaeda. And Iran, that's who Iran was fighting against. I just put a piece up at Sonar 21 last night pointing out that with the data from multiple sources, not just West Point and the Counterterrorism Center and others, show that since the 1980s, the overwhelming majority of suicide bombers have been carried out by these radical Sunnis, not by groups affiliated with Iran.
That's 100%. I think, and anyone that follows the region knows that. Everyone, I think the argument of Iran supporting terrorism, Iran building nuclear weapons, this is more for the voter base that doesn't follow politics and less for people that understand what's happening.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
The truth is, it's almost always about oil. It's almost always about influence. It's never about democracy. The Mushtab, not Mushtab, I forgot his name, the Mossadegh, the leader that was democratically elected in the 50s, the first time Iran elected a leader democratically ever, was deposed through a coup led by mainly the UK, and then the US joined as well. And the Shah came in, and the Shah and the animosity for the coup that led to the Shah that was very brutal is what led to the regime that's led to the war that we are now. Right. It's funny. It's reminds me of the Butterfly Effect movie. So, but I want to go back to your original point, Larry. Isn't there also a possibility that there are negotiations behind the scenes? Again, maybe Iran doesn't want Trump to get ahead of himself because he benefits. If he talks about negotiations, he benefits immediately. Iran doesn't benefit. It's not a good look for them and their people. They want to show strength. But isn't there a possibility there's negotiations that are progressing, even if the troops are moving? Because the troops are moving to the region because the negotiations could fail. There's always a possibility, number one. And number two is you'd want to always put pressure on the other side while negotiating.
Well, the problem the Iranians have with making the case for negotiations is, why should they negotiate? What has been achieved as a result of past negotiations? They agreed to negotiate with the JCPOA. They made sacrifices under that agreement. And what happened? Not only did the Europeans fail to carry out the portion about lifting sanctions, Donald Trump tore it up, and it was never, even though they had agreed to it, the West destroyed it, not Iran. Iran said, yeah, we're willing to, you can come inspect our nuclear facilities. We'll limit our enrichment to 20%. Some very concrete things that Iran had agreed to. And what did it get them? It got them the abrogate, the trashing of that treaty, and no relief from sanctions. They went down the negotiating road last
Treaty,
June.
you're talking about the JCPOA.
JCPOA,
yeah?
right.
Yeah.
And then last June, again, betrayed by the United States. And then more recently, February 28th, again, betrayed. So, you get hit three times. You can't point to a single time in which they've entered into the negotiations and it's turned out good for Iran, just the opposite. So I think the Iranians now recognize, hey, we're going to have to force the United States into a situation where they're weakened. And part of that is getting rid of the U.S. military out of the region. Just saw, it looks like U.S. troops have been forced out of Iraq, for starters. The United States has apparently evacuated what remaining U.S. troops were there in that country. Yesterday and today.
Okay.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, check it out.
There's just a news, just by the way, you see me looking down, just came in by Politico now. The Trump administration is quietly weighing Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, as a potential partner and future leader in Iran, according to Politico. That's the one that Ghalibaf is seen by some in the White House as a workable partner who could negotiate with the Trump admin in the next phase of the war. So this is the person that said they're negotiating with, and then he posted saying, no, this is fake news. The spokesperson for the parliament, I think.
Yeah. Well, got news for the White House. The Iranian people choose their leader, not the White House. And Trump and the White House are acting like that. See, this is what they want. This has been the goal for the last 50 years. They can't have the Ayatollahs because that is what the people selected. We got to have some bitch that will do our bidding. They'll jump to. We tell them to hop. They'll say, "Which foot, sir?" No, Iran's not going to submit itself to that.
But it's a reality. I think it's the world we live in. Obviously, you're a much bigger expert than I, but I just see it as it's the unfair reality where sovereignty and the rule of law never applies. It's always the big guy bullies the small guy, whether it's China, Russia, or the US. Right now, the biggest guy is the US, and they're bullying Venezuela, etc., to advance their interests. And I think if the US, this is where I could be wrong, obviously, but if the US wants to work with him, if the IRGC agrees, I think they're the ones that call the shots. Iranian people just want the war to end. Now, will there be animosity long-term like after the Shah? Yeah. Will we face the repercussions of this 10 years from now? Yeah. But you don't seem confident this will even progress then. But if this doesn't progress, then what happens? How will this war end?
The war is going to end with the United States having to make a deal on Iran's terms, not the opposite way around, because it will crash. It's the world economy is already in recession. Now, economists are coming out and say, "Oh, wait a second! You've got to have a certain negative growth rate for a certain period of time to count it as a recession." It started, okay. Well, they'll look back and they go, "Oh yeah, that recession started around February 28th when the United States launched this war." Already, like let's take Dubai as an example. 83% of Dubai, 25% of Dubai's economy comes from oil. The other 58% comes from, international trade. Okay, well, there's no trade going on at Jebel Ali, I'll tell you that much, because no ships are moving. What about international finance? Is that still prospering there? No, they've shut down and moved out of the country because it's too risky. Tourism, you don't see I bet you the planes landing at Dubai are not filled with passengers. Coming out, they may be, but not going in. So this cash flow that's been disrupted to the United Arab Emirate, and the cash flow that's been disrupted and stopped to Qatar, that's already having an effect. And then that leaves Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, the countries that have been
screwed.
The countries that have been most tight with the United States, they're in trouble, and they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. Their economies are all going to. I don't want to say implode, but they're going to be significantly reduced. And at the same time, this is an inflationary shock it's spreading around the world. I mean, here in the United States, you should have said, "Hey, we're energy independent. So what?" Gasoline prices in the last week have gone up $1.10, so from $2.54 to $3.64. And I haven't checked it today. I bet it's up another 10 cents. So these economic overwash, the United States does not have the military power to defeat Iran without incurring a terrible cost in terms of loss of life that will destroy the Trump administration. I think the Trump administration has already destroyed itself.
Yeah, I was just looking at the midterms. The betting platforms put at a Democratic sweep. It was at a 50-50 2 days ago. Now it's down to for the Democrats to win the Senate, it's down to 48-53 for the Republicans. It improved a bit for the Republicans after the news today. Just going back to the discussion, though, so there is a scenario, though, that the U.S. Trump would accept to lift the sanctions, because for him, he doesn't really, if Iran allows the U.S. more economic access to the country, that's all that Trump is a businessman. That's all he cares about, making money off the Iran's oil and the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran does that and opens up to do more business like Garcia Rodriguez with Trump, in return, Trump would lift the sanctions. Iran would do well economically. And in terms of the reparations, you could frame it, you could label it as like, we're going to invest a lot of money in Iran because they gave us great opportunities. Trump could sell it to the voters. And for Iran, they see this as, reparations, as compensation for the war. And Gulf countries could even chip in, but that's a different story. So there is a model now, putting the US bases aside, there is a model for at least the two other demands to be fulfilled, where it's a win-win model, putting Israel aside as well. It's a win-win model for both countries. And Israel would want an end to the war. The last couple of days have been even last few days have been brutal for them. Those cluster munitions have been very damaging.
Yeah, it's going to continue to be damaging for them. The United States actually has already lifted sanctions on Iran. Now, think about this. The reason that the sanctions were originally imposed were to put pressure on Iran to basically try to bring about regime change. And now, when the United States is faced with this global oil shortage, this global shortage of liquid natural gas, and the global shortage of more than 1/3 of the world's fertilizer, what do? Panic. Remember those sanctions were Trump signs an executive order, eliminates like 20 sanctions that he had imposed on Iran and that Joe Biden had imposed. What does that tell you? That tells you the U.S. is desperate, because if you're confident, we got control of the liquid natural gas market and we're energy independent, no, they don't have that leverage. And similarly with Russia, they don't have that leverage over Russia anymore too. So, that's when the United States tipped its hand, how bad this is. So the problem is the U.S. financial markets are like a crooked casino. It's insider trading. It's controlled by a few large banks and other corporations and some very wealthy individuals. They can manipulate the market. And that's exactly what happened today. I mean, why do you think Trump made this announcement at 7:30 before the market opened? Just a coincidence? No. This was designed market timing both to put pressure to get the stock market back up and to get the price of oil down.
Yeah, I think the news could be true and the announcement could be for the markets as well. Like both can be true. The only thing I'm not sure about is I was talking to Jonathan Conricus about to earlier. He said, what else could Iran do from the IDF as a former spokesperson? He said, well, there's not much more than Iran could do. I told him there's a lot more. Iran could mine the Strait of Hormuz. There's reports they've already put 10 mines, I think more of a warning rather than for any practical reason. And they could activate the Houthis. Now, there's some reports that the Houthis have decided to stay out of this war and negotiate some sort of deal with Saudis. I find that to be unlikely. If Hezbollah got involved, the Houthis are even more likely to get involved.
Right.
So there's a lot more I think that Iran could do. Now, in terms of how many more missiles could they launch, I don't know. Different people give me different information. But then there's the question of Israel. Would Israel want to enter the war? Now, Netanyahu made a statement that Trump told him he would like to end the war. He wanted to like to end the war in diplomacy. There's also been a report that Trump wants to end the war by the first week of April. Do you think Netanyahu or Israel would agree to end the war as well?
He may not have a choice because he can't continue the war without U.S. support. And once it becomes clear to Trump and his advisors that they're going to lose, right now Trump is under the delusion that this is winning. You saw him the other day, all excited that he said, CNN had a poll said 100% support. 100% support from what? From MAGA. How did they describe who was MAGA? Because you could accuse me of being MAGA. I voted for Trump, but by God, I'd vote to impeach him right now. He needs to be removed.
Did you vote for him in the latest elections?
Oh yeah.
If he could run again, would you vote for him again?
No,
or not after this war?
No, not
this
after
war
this.
really bothered you.
Yeah, and it's not just me. I mean, there are a lot of people like me. Where you got the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Thomas Masseys, the Rand Pauls, the Joe Rogan. I mean, it's just
Tucker.
Tucker Carlson. It's just it's piling up.
Yeah, I agree with you that Israel might not have a chance. So I've been very critical of the war, so much so that that a lot of people have labeled me. What did they label me? I've been critical. They've labeled me a sympathizer with the Iranian regime. I've gotten a lot of hate for that because I've been very critical of the war. But I do have a more nuanced take that's a bit more positive. That, again, many disagree with, and it's one that I told you.
Wait a second. You're not allowed to have your own point of view. You've got. We're going to tell you what you got to think.
I swear, the people love to put other people in buckets. But yeah, so my view. So I was in Hungary. I told you, and I interviewed Orban. I did a tweet on it as well. I interviewed him about the war in Iran. Now, this is someone who's been prime minister since 1999. I've said this before, and his input for me, I find very valuable. He's usually pretty honest. Not first time I sit with him. Always direct. Is a very close friend with Trump. Trump spoke with him before this war. His country will suffer significantly if this war drags on because migrants would flow up to Europe if Iran becomes a failed state or struggles a lot. And Hungary's been fighting against illegal immigrants for as long as Orban has been prime minister. And he's seen the Afghanistan war, Iraq war, 9/11, Libya, Syria. He's seen it all. Ukraine, been very vocal there. Now, so I asked him, I'm like, do you think that was a mistake? Because he was supporting Trump even when he was a candidate in 2015, he was supporting Trump. And I said, do you think that was a mistake? And he's like, Mario, it depends on the outcome because there's two scenarios. One of them is Trump seeks an exit, even if he doesn't get what he wants, even if it ends up being a failure for him. I think it takes, and this is me saying this, it takes more guts to accept a failure and accept defeat and pull out of it, even though he paints it as a win for his voters. He's like, look, I fucked up. I thought I could do a Venezuela 2.0. It did not work. I'm going to pretend it's a win and call it a day and move to Cuba. But if he does something like this, whether he loses or wins, he actually might achieve a win with those negotiations and shock us both. Then this war might have been a good thing. Now, Orban is very close to Netanyahu in Israel, just to give you his stance. On the other hand, if this becomes a prolonged war, then Trump made a horrible mistake. Horrible for the US, horrible for the world, horrible for Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and of course, Iran. My question to you is there a scenario, and what would that scenario look like, where Trump actually comes out of this and surprises many people and ends up achieving a Venezuela 2.0? in one of the most important and sensitive choke points in the world, energy choke points. Is that a possibility, and how would that look like, and what would it take?
Yeah, I don't think it's possible at all, because what happened in Venezuela was an inside job. There
Yeah.
were three, I don't want to call them defectors. There were three assets that had that worked for DEA and that were keen. They were part of Maduro's security team. So they basically got all of the security apparatus turned off. That's how the U.S. was able to get in and out. I think Israel thought they had some guy like that with Ismail Khani, that as head of the IRGC, he was cooperating. He was identifying people so they could be killed. But, he was
Is he
found
still
out.
around?
No, they executed him.
They did execute, because I
yeah.
heard these reports. He hasn't been seen since?
Nope. So it's like from The Godfather, Luca Brasi, sleeps with the fishes. He's no longer around. So there was stories are now coming out indicating that this really was part of the salesman job that Bibi Netanyahu did with Trump. Said, yeah, we got this wired. All we got to do is put this pressure on, kill the top people, and Iran's going to collapse like a house of cards. Well, they were lying to themselves. What they what they wanted to be true wasn't the same as what was true on the ground. So now the United States is in a situation where China and Russia particularly have stepped up their cooperation with Iran. They had already signed on January 29th, a month before the war started, a trilateral security agreement. And now China's paying attention to the words that are coming out of Congress and some of the think tanks in DC that are talking about, we need to seize Karg Island so we can cut off China's supply of oil, so we can put pressure on China to defeat China. And so China realizes the West has no interest, the United States in particular has zero interest in finding out how to have a working partnership with China, one that's based upon mutual respect and cooperation. The United States insisting that it must be the hegemon and that Russia and China got to bend the knee to us. And, the Russia and China are saying, no, we're not doing that. And so that's what's at stake. And you see the spillover effect. If you listen to Lavrov this week, extremely critical, extremely bitter at what the United States, how it's carried out negotiations.
In terms of Iran or Ukraine?
Well, in terms of both. Just that the United States no longer respects international law and can't be trusted. And then the trip with the meeting with the Chinese, Trump's acting like he called that off. I'm willing to bet the Chinese said, "Oh, we don't have time for you at the end of the month." So Trump's, I decided not to go. But we'll see. But you don't see China and Russia rushing.
But China needs the straight. China needs the straight. Like, their renewable energy is years away from becoming self-sustaining. They still need the oil coming out of that strait.
No, they don't. They got it coming out of Russia.
Reserves don't.
They got it coming out of Russia.
But Russia cannot compensate for that oil coming out. Yeah, there's a lot of oil coming out.
Not that much. I think the West has grossly exaggerated the importance of the Persian Gulf oil to China. But China can get the oil out right now. In fact, anybody can get the oil out as long as they play Chinese yuan.
Yeah, but they can get. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so China's coming out. China's in a much better position than Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, because of the relationship with Russia and the plans already that were in place, building pipelines, both for liquid natural gas and for oil.
There is something else we didn't talk about, is Dimona, the strike yesterday. Mm-hmm. What do you know about it so far? I know that the strike was in the civilian area, away from the nuclear facility, but it's a very well protected area. so it was a still significant strike. Some people said it's a failed attempt to strike the nuclear facility. Others said it's a warning shot to Israel, saying, "Hey, we can strike your nuclear facility if we choose to."
Right.
Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, it's the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth mentality. The Israel and the United States struck first near Bushehr nuclear power plant in Iran, but they didn't hit the plant. It was nearby location. So Iran did the same thing.
Sure.
They hit nearby, and they showed, though, that their hypersonic missiles defeated the Israeli air defense system. I mean, you see
saw the video.
Yeah, the missiles going up and
there's I don't know if the producer can find it in time. It's going to be hard to find, but essentially you'll see a missile, and the Iranian missile falling down, and you see the interceptors going, missing it. Another interceptor going and missing it, and each one costs, I don't know how long, millions, going and missing the Iranian missiles, and it lands. So
if those were Patriots, they run between $4 and $6 million.
It's insane watching this $4 million fly, another $4 million fly. War is crazy. War is crazy. All that, imagine all that money is put into other places, like developing cures for different diseases, or getting people to another planet, or AI, etc., or other tech developments. But education. That's a fair point. Like, Iran has shown capabilities to really retaliate exactly exactly as they've warned, is a tit-for-tat attack where they get their gas field struck. Within hours, they strike the Qatari gas field.
Right.
They get the strike next to their nuclear power plant in Bushehr. Within hours, I think it's within hours, I don't know, or within a day, they strike the near the Dimona nuclear facility. Everyone's up in arms and shocked. And there was another strike in another city as well that caused a lot of damage. You saw Ben Gvir going there, and one of the Israeli citizens yelling at him, blaming him for the war and for what he's done. That's a settler as well.
Was it ADAD? ADAD? Something.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So, and we've talked already about the risks of Israel using a nuclear weapon.
Let me interrupt you for a second, though. Note what they haven't done. Israel has hit hospitals and schools and cultural centers. Iran hasn't. They've
struck civilian areas. They've struck apartments and stuff in Israel with the cluster munitions.
Yeah, there's been some civilian areas struck, but they've not gone after the schools and the hospitals, which they could. I mean, if they're going strict tit for tat, they could do that. They haven't.
But hasn't been. So I know about the school that was struck on day one, and that was by an American Tomahawk, from what I understand. Was there others hospitals and schools struck?
Yeah. They're saying last numbers I saw were 29 different hospitals have been struck, mostly in Tehran.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But look, that's what Israel did in Gaza. I mean, they're falling. Israel continues to.
But they're not doing it. They're not doing it in Lebanon, though. That's why I thought Iran would be different as well. In Lebanon, they're being very, very meticulous with their attacks to make sure that the Lebanese people don't turn on them and turn on Hezbollah. I would have expected the same in Iran, because they would want the citizens to turn on their regime, because if they strike hospitals, the citizens would rally behind their regime even further and not rise against their regime, which is what Israel wants. That's why I'd be surprised. Again, the facts, but I'd be surprised. I am surprised if, based on what you're saying.
Yeah, look it up. You'll be unpleasantly surprised.
What do you make of the attacks by Iran on the Kurds as well? Is Iran worried or prepared for a potential incursion by the Kurdish forces?
No, this was they're sending the Kurds a message that, and trying to figure out what a Kurd is. It depends on, are you in Syria? Are you in Iraq? Are you in Armenia? Are you in Iran? They're scattered all over. And what has happened to the Kurds repeatedly, the Kurds in Iraq and the Kurds in Syria, they aligned themselves with the United States. And we do, hey, trust us, man, we got your back. And when push came to shove, and when the United States had to choose between al-Shara, formerly al-Jalani, and the Sunni head choppers, and the Kurds, who did they choose? The head choppers, not the Kurds. That happened in Syria. Similar thing happened in Iraq. So I think the Kurds have been burned enough by the West that you see Iran's not so much attacking the Kurds as attacking the U.S. bases in Erbil to drive the U.S. forces out. And I think, candidly, there's going to be several Kurds that will be supportive of that. So this, I don't see the Iranians very much worried about the Kurdish uprising, because the Kurds only account for like 9% of the population anyway. You've got, between the Azeris, the Persians account for 61% of Iran's population, and the Azeris count for like another 19%. So there you got roughly 80% of the population in those two ethnic groups. Kurds are a minority, and they don't have, if they press for an independent homeland, they're going to have to deal with Turkey too.
I have a question for you. Now I'm looking at the latest news, going to give you an update here. There's obviously the news about Iran's parliament speaker being the one chosen by the Trump administration, according to Axios. My team posted about it, and they said the Trump administration has decided this is their guy. Ghalibaf has not been informed that he is their guy. So the team is kind of taking a jab at the news. I just saw the tweet. So there's also a lot of companies, massive record number of hedges being placed for oil, essentially securing their profits at the current levels to make sure they protect themselves against the instability. So in other words, a lot of companies are kind of hedging any price fluctuations in case, price changes, whether it goes down or up. So there's a lot of hedging going around in the market there. But the most important one is there's more strikes happening. Like while we're speaking, we're seeing, I'm watching here, but it's not worth playing on screen, but there's strikes in Isfahan in Iran targeting IRGC and military positions. While all this is happening, every day that goes by, more targets are being bombed in Iran. Mm-hmm. So I understand Iran's capabilities have exceeded expectations. I understand they had a lot buried underground. They still have a lot buried underground. I understand there's enriched uranium we cannot account for that can make about 10 to 13 bombs. Now, I had one of the negotiators of the JCPOA on the show yesterday, and he said, Mario, even if they have the enriched uranium, having not the missile, but the bomb designed specifically for that uranium that would work with that enriched uranium to be able to deliver it, he doubts that Iran has it. But they can develop it. So, but I understand all these things, and they've surpassed many expectations, including mine. But at the same time, they are being bombed every day. Mm-hmm. And they are also human, no matter how radical or how religious or how defiant they are, whatever term you want to use, they're humans like me, you, and everyone listening. So humans there's only so much they could take. How much more bombing could they take? That's another thing as well that we should take into consideration in these negotiations. They do have the world's biggest military flying over them on a daily basis and dropping bombs.
Well, it's not clear that they're actually flying over them. What's clear is that they are dropping bombs from outside, and the Iranians have been shooting down in increasing numbers. So they just shot down an F-15 yesterday. They came down. Yeah.
Did it crash, or the one in Kuwait?
No, the one in Kuwait.
So CENTCOM put out a report saying it didn't, but you think it did?
Oh, it did.
I don't know.
Yeah, it did. Oh, yeah.
Do you think, but CENTCOM could easily, so this is something I don't understand. Can CENTCOM, I understand there's things that are kept confidential, but could they really bury a story about a fighter jet being shot down?
Yes.
These things eventually leak and come out.
Well, no, they lie. Look, I only worked with those guys for 23 years. They lie their ass off.
That's not enough. Hold on, only 23, Larry. Okay, you're not qualified to talk.
Yeah, what do I know? What do I know?
Well, let me tell you, Larry. Let me tell you.
As I told you, I think in a previous conversation, it was about 20 years ago that we scripted an exercise that for JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command, and the exercise scenario involved sending Delta Force into Iran to attack a nuclear site to recover nuclear material. And Iran didn't have half the capabilities it does now. But the lesson learned out of that exercise was, I recall, was don't do it. What looks good on paper is when you actually try to have to do it. And as I recalled, we ran it as what they called a field training exercise in FTX, and Delta Force did it out in the deserts of Nevada. So, where they loaded up and then figured out how they were going to infiltrate and then try to, secure the material, and then how the hell they get it exfiltrated out. So, like I said, I've been around this for a while and have seen, how the spin takes place, the lies take place. They don't tell the truth. We saw it, and it's not just now. In the first Gulf War, going back to 1990, they claimed that they, shot down like 90% of the Scuds, and I guess that was 2003 that they do the 90% claim, and Ted Postal showed that no, actually, it was closer to 5%, not 90%. But 90% seems to be the favored number. So there's the reality is, look at the kind of punishment the Palestinians have taken over 2.5 years. Have they given up? No. I'll guarantee you, Iran is a far larger country, and yeah, they can cause some destruction in certain parts, but actually very not massive destruction, short of using a nuclear bomb in Tehran, which would then put us into a whole new category of retaliation. So Iran, actually, they can endure this for quite a while.
Another development as well, as according to CNN, Iran's supreme leader's senior military advisor said the war continues until Iran receives full compensation, all sanctions are lifted, and legal binding international guarantees prevent future U.S. interference. So, okay, so again, please be right, but it seems the bases are, according to these two reports now, that they haven't mentioned the basis. I hope it's true. I don't know if it's the same report. Could be the same one. He also claimed, this is a big one I want to get your thoughts on, though. He also claimed the war was effectively over a week ago. The U.S. wanted to stop, but Netanyahu pushed to continue. I find that hard to believe. What do you think?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. But we've seen both Trump and Netanyahu are coordinating messages. So, Trump's message was, oh, we've defeated Iran. We've got a victory. We've beat them. We've destroyed their Air Force. Well, they didn't have much of an Air Force, but okay. We destroyed the Air Force, though they can still launch missiles. Oh, we've destroyed their Navy. Oh, they still have all these
plant mines,
coastal boats. Yeah, coastal boats, so they can still plant mines. They got submarines. And Netanyahu came in and said, yeah, we've destroyed their ability to enrich uranium, and we've destroyed their ballistic missile capability. So there you got both Trump and Bibi sort of on the same page. It's setting the stage to say, okay, we'll declare victory and we'll put an end to this. The problem with that is I don't think Iran will accept that. Iran, what you've read out there, Iran's going to demand those other things. Lifting the sanctions, that should be easy. They've already sort of done that.
Yeah, they did, of course.
Yeah, but getting the guarantees that they're not going to do this again, because candidly, I believe until the only way to really ensure that the United States doesn't do it again is to get rid of the bases. No more U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf, because their only reason to exist there was originally to, quote, protect them from the Iranians. Yet the Iranians have never been one to export their, quote, revolution. They faced constant attack from the West, started in September of 1980. So the Ayatollah Khomeini had only been the leader of Iran for about 18 months at that point. And here's the United States encouraging Saddam to start the war. And then Ronald Reagan steps it up. We provide him with the chemical weapons. We provide him with intelligence. We're doing everything we can to help Iraq defeat Iran. Iran fights it off, and then continues to face sanctions and attacks from the United States. The United States lines up a terrorist group and funds that terrorist group. The terrorist group continues carrying out attacks inside Iran. We don't have a single attack carried out by a terrorist group inside the United States backed by Iran, not one.
I've got another theory. I was going to post about it a while ago. I talked with Karen about it, Colonel.
Oh, yeah.
Colonel Karen. And she disagreed with me, but I'll see if you also disagree with me. And I think Iran is going to Iran wants these negotiations to succeed, and I think but they also want Israel to accept those negotiations in their terms, and therefore they know Gulf countries are not as critical. They're in the middle, and they understand why they were struck. They're critical of Iran, but they also understand. They're understanding that Iran was fighting for survival, and they're also they've got a lot of animosity to the US for dragging them into that war. So what I think they will do is they will stop striking the Gulf or reduce their attacks on the Gulf significantly and focus their firepower on Israel instead to force Netanyahu to the negotiating table. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think they've actually started to do that. They announced today that in this next wave, they're specifically targeting the military airfields in Israel because they've demonstrated that they have essentially stripped off the air defense capabilities. So those airfields can be attacked at will. They will only attack the Gulf Arab states if they continue to let their bases be used to attack Iran. And the number one country there that's going to pay that price, I think, is Saudi Arabia, because it has allowed U.S. Bombers and U.S. Refuelers to be relocated out in Taif as opposed to near Riyadh.
That's good news. That's really good news.
Well, it was still.
This is the first time we've said many times before. Like, hopefully, we can come on the show one day where there's actually good developments. Lucky you didn't come on the show yesterday because it would have been about Dimona and the risks there.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came on today where there is some light at the end of the tunnel. But as you said, and as you've warned, this could shift in an instant. Tomorrow could have a brand new day, and it could also all be a bluff, as you said, that troops are still moving to the region. Why would they need to move to the region if there's negotiations of peace?
Yeah, I mean, if Trump was serious about it, those planes, instead of flying from the United States, and in fact, let me read you the list. I think I saved it here because I can give you some insight to what we're talking about. Because they listed a number of bases that are being used to bring troops forward, and one of them was coming out of Washington, the state of Washington, where it is the 75th Ranger Regiment. Yeah, okay, here it is. Origins, Hunter Army Airfield, Stewart, Georgia. I think that's 101st. Lewis McChord Air Base, Washington. That's the 75th Rangers right there. Hope Army Airfield, Fort Bragg. That's 82nd. Campbell Army Airfield, Fort Campbell. That's the 160th Special Operations Unit. Gray Army Airfield, Lewis McChord. So again, this is more Ranger territory, Special Operations support. Naval Air Station, Oceana, Virginia. That's SEAL Team 6. MacDill Air Force Base, that's CENTCOM. So what you're seeing here is it's not just not only are they moving conventional forces, but they're moving special operations forces. And that's why I believe that this whole focus on Karg Island, and the Marines, it's, hey, look at this shiny object over here. Meanwhile, they're planning a special operations mission that may be going back to what I worked on 20 years ago to try to go in and take control of Iran's nuclear enriched fuel.
So what is the worst case scenario then? If we don't see a peace deal, what happens next? If this all breaks down, or if suddenly we see the guy suddenly killed the guy they're negotiating with, they're considering as a potential middleman between them and the IRGC, if he's gone out of the picture for whatever reason, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Israel strikes them, or even the IRGC kill him because they don't want those negotiations to be forward. We never know. But if that happens, what then?
The U.S. launches this military operation and loses 1,000 or more troops, killed and wounded. That will be, that'll be the biggest loss of military life in one campaign.
I think Trump will actually do, but do you really think Trump will do it?
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
Yeah, I mean, he's not shown any restraint up to this point. And this, I think a lot of this, what we see as flip-flopping back and forth and the erratic behavior, I can't dismiss the likelihood that is it's an act, so that he can that they can cover up what's actually getting ready to happen. And they're putting way too much faith in the ability of the special operations forces to carry out some of these missions. I've got great respect for them. Like I said, I worked with those units for 23 years, and they're still human beings. They still have limitations, and they're when you've got somebody on the other side shooting back at you with real ammunition, then all of a sudden it doesn't matter how many push-ups you can do, how fast you can run, how much how long you can go without sleep and endure great suffering. Bullets don't care. When they pierce your body, they don't care. And so this is one of my oldest friends. He was a young ranger on Operation Eagle Claw back in 1980. So 46 years ago, he was a ranger, and when they tried to do that rescue mission to rescue the U.S. hostages from Iran, they landed in the desert. He was doing perimeter security, and during that, one of the helicopters flew into one of the planes, and it killed it killed four people. So that was a disaster. Those kinds of disasters can happen, and particularly a risky mission. That this really isn't about preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
That's an excuse. Yeah. This is about trying to get the change in the Iranian regime, so that the United States will have somebody that it can boss around, tell what to do, and it will happily carry our water and other trash for us.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree there. There's not many people, even people that are very critical, very pro-war, pro-Israel. There's not many people talking about this being for nuclear weapons or Iran developing nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
I think that's very, very clear. What is Russia's role in this? There's a claim that Colonel McGregor's made that a lot of people are talking about. I don't know where he got that claim. I find it hard to believe. I wouldn't disagree with the colonel directly, but he said that Russia, I think the claim was that Russia threatened Israel with a nuclear weapon. Have you seen that? I'm not sure what he said exactly, whether if Israel nukes Iran or something along those lines. Or there was a threat made by Russia against Israel. So I'm not sure if you've seen that clip.
No, I haven't.
Going viral. Okay, I'll try to find it again. But what is Russia's role in all this, and how involved are they?
What is it? 2 million of the Israelis are actually dual Russian citizens.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky position for Russia.
But Russia also, a couple of those Israelis have made what were viewed in Moscow as veiled death threats against Putin, and they don't take lightly to being threatened with assassination by the
Israeli
Israelis.
Citizens, or
no, one of the Israeli members of their legislature.
What?
So yeah, this was like 4 days ago.
Some of these members of their government are just complete nutcases.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, they are fanatics. It's out of the settler movement. It's out of the Ben Gavir's, Smotrich, Bezalel Smotrich. I always hear that name, and I think of Beelzebub, another name for the devil.
Why do you think the Houthis haven't joined the war? Because they would make a difference as well if they close the Bab el Mandeb and start striking Saudi.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything for them yet really to do.
Well, they could be left as a last resort, as a negotiating card.
They're willing to. They can step up. What I find real interesting is how much Hezbollah has now coordinated with Iran on its strikes, simultaneously, and the Israelis are having a tough time rooting these guys out. They tried it in 2006. Failed, and I think they'll fail again here. They just Israel doesn't have the military strength to defeat Hezbollah.
There's also the attacks now in Iraq that are ongoing. So I'm just seeing what tonight I think is going to be very important. Where the locations that are attacked tonight will determine whether negotiations are happening and what those negotiations include. Iranian proxy groups right now are reportedly attacking and launched at least 6 suicide drones at the Ramallah military base in northern Syria today. I'm guessing it's an American base.
Yes.
Iraqi militia channels released their footage of the CRAM firing over Erbil. Iran's proxies are filming the American defense in action. So there's reports that Iraq is lit up right now. There hasn't been any attacks on the Gulf, if you notice. Let me see my other source. I'm just looking at my X account. Yeah, nothing on the other source as well in terms of attacks in the Gulf, as we've said. So that would be a really positive development for that region. Really positive development. I think if the Gulf is struck again, which is there could be a possibility that never happens again, because I think Iran needs them on their side now that negotiations are ongoing. It's a position of leverage. Who's going to get more leverage? I just see Iran losing more if they continue striking the Gulf, and that turning on them, because there's the discussion of whether the Gulf would turn on the US, especially long term, or turn on Iran. There's been a lot of reports where Gulf countries are saying to the US, look, you got us in this war, we were against it, screw you, but now that you've started it, get the job done. You've seen those reports. Defang Iran, so that never happens again. But for that sentiment to change, if Iran stops attacking the Gulf and just focus on Israel, then we could see the Gulf saying, all right, we need peace now. Iran, you've made a good gesture. Trump, it's your turn. You need to end the war now. So that could work to pressure Trump further. If I was Iran, that would be a strategic move if there is negotiations.
Well, I think Iran understands that there is a wide gulf between what the average citizen of these countries believes and this small group of autocratic leaders that are basically, family based. They're, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain. I mean, Bahrain is just one guy basically, and the Saudis as well. So it's not like each of these governments is rooted with a strong basis of public support. It's sort of just the opposite. And I think Iran, up to this point, has tried to limit its attacks to those sites that have been used to facilitate attacks against Iran. The one that's been most vocal of late in threatening Iran has been the United Arab Emirates. And, candidly, that's like having a toothless chihuahua bark at you. They've got no military clout.
But they do have economic clout. They have a lot of Iranian money. This is why the UAE was surprised they were struck, because there's a lot of Iranians that use the UAE to bank and to do a lot of business with. So there is economic leverage that the UAE has.
Well, they had, but I'd say they had it, but they no longer have it now that the access, no more commercial trade coming in, no oil going out. So it's going to affect the UAE's cash flow, definitely. I mean, now we're 24. I take that back. We're now day 25 of this war.
That's insane.
And we're going to be at day 30 soon. So it will be, the fifth week. So, we got the 28th was one, and then first. So you got the 7th, then the 14th. And then the 21st is 4. So we're now on the 5th week. We're started the 5th week of this.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Larry, it's a pleasure as always. I just, you've seen a lot. So it's always good to have you kind of comment on the developments, but also reflect on them with a historical perspective in mind. And
well, that's a polite way of saying you're really old.
You're always the man that pops the bubble. So Mari comes in and happy that we're seeing developments as negotiations. I put out a few posts how I still am positive and I still am hopeful. And then you come in kind of a bit of a reality check. But I really hope the troops moving to the region is more of a pressure tactic and a hedge, because the negotiations doesn't mean a peace deal is reached, but at least there's movement towards a peace deal. So even if it's not a bluff, or pressure tactic, why would he stop moving troops to the region if there's negotiations? Because negotiations are not guaranteed to succeed.
Yeah. Well, when I read off that list of the bases that they're deploying from, there's something really, I'll call it more ominous at work. This again, I think, is another fake deception by Trump to try to convince the Iranians to lower their guard, because the United States is going to do something significant on the military side. Try to, anyway.
All right, Larry, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Hey, anytime, Mario. It's good to see you again. Stay well, my friend.
Thank you, brother. See you,
Bye-bye.
Larry.